What's up, guys? Hey, welcome back to another video. The $1,000,000 question: is it worth driving for Uber in LA? Remember, I want to be specific to my market in this video. In 2024, the short answer to that, it's no. But I don't want to make that video this short, so I want to go back to the beginning of when I started doing this. So those of you have never been involved with Uber at all, so you can see what was it like back then and what is it like now. What are we? October of 2024. All right, so let me take you back to exactly February of 2022. That's when I started getting involved with Uber. Back then I was only doing Uber Eats. Back then I remember a small Uber Eats order, probably a couple of cups of coffee from Starbucks, maybe 2 miles, 2.5 miles around my neighborhood. I could have been 10, 15 bucks for that much, quick. You get it done quick. Let's say something a little farther out, 3.5, 4 miles, breakfast from Dennis or something like that. That could easily go upwards of 20 bucks, and it will take you probably, if you was lucky, and if you're near the Dennis like I would just position myself near all the, most of the restaurants in my neighborhood. You could get this Dennis run in probably 18, 20-ish minutes. I'd say sometimes it might take you half an hour. But again, it was 20, sometimes a little bit more than 20. And I remember you rarely see anybody removing a tip. I used to only see that stuff in some areas of LA, not where I lived. Again, throughout the video, I want to mention that I'm in Los Angeles. I don't want you guys to get lost in what market I'm at. I'm still in Los Angeles, by the way. Fast forward from February of 22 to April of 22. Those orders that I just mentioned were no longer existent. A quick Starbucks run to the same neighborhood, to the same person, went all the way down to like probably $5, $6. And that Dennis run that I just mentioned, not only that it took longer to get the food because places were crowded with all the drivers waiting, but the $20-ish orders that I just mentioned, like a Dennis run, it went down to like probably 14 bucks. At that time, April of 22, that's when I started, debating, do I keep doing these or not? Now, keep in mind, I do have a job. I'm a drone pilot. That's what I do even till today. I'm still driving, but that's what I do. I decided back then, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. At the same time, I was talking to drivers in the area, good friends of mine, that kept telling me from the beginning, hey, forget about Uber Eats. Switch your account to passengers. So finally listened to them, went ahead, switched the account to passengers. And I say maybe end of April, May of 22, when I finally got everything all squared up, I started doing Uber rides. Now, back then, I decided to use a gas vehicle. It was a Toyota CHR. It's a small SUV. At that time, I remember I could get up early, and a reservation, like an airport reservation, was somewhere around 40-ish, almost 50 bucks, sometimes close to $70. I'm 38 miles away from the biggest airport that we have in the area, LAX, but I'm also closer to another airport that's not as big as LAX. It's only 18 miles away. To go to that smaller airport 18 miles away, a run used to be $30 every morning. You get 2 or 3 of those requests. I didn't have to worry about, am I going to get something that's worth it? No, it was just constant. Now, one thing to keep in mind, at that time, gas prices were roaming the $5, $5. There's parts of LA where, believe it or not, we saw upwards of 7 and change. But I used to gas up in areas where the cheapest $5 and change. At the same time, I was on what we call a honeymoon period. I was a new driver. At that time, there were also bonuses available that are no longer available today. And the bonuses were something like, let's say, Uber would say, if you do 20 rides, we'll give you $100 throughout the week. If you do 80 rides throughout the week, we'll give you $300. So there was a lot of incentives back then. Again, remember, I was a new driver, and that's a habit that Uber uses. Now, back then, small rides that were probably a mile and a half to pick up and another mile and a half to drop the passenger. Back then, a ride like that was probably $5 minimum. You'll never see anything, below that. On top of that, you were encouraged to get those little rides to complete the bonus that they'll offer you. But then on top of that, Uber used to offer a little boost areas by times of the day where they'll say, if you drive in this certain area, they'll do a little square over the map in certain areas around LA. Let's say if you drive in this area from 9 at night all the way till 3 in the morning, any ride that starts on this area will get $4 on top of the regular fare price. So imagine there was areas of LA, the nicer areas of LA that was always busy. I would go at 9 o'clock and I would do probably 6-7 quick trips. That was minimum $5 plus the $4. You was looking at $9 plus in a potential tip. It was different time, and I've noticed that from that time till today, tips are a bit different. So back then, you not only were building up to the bonus on the weekend with those small rides, but a short ride, if you could do 4 of those an hour, only on busy times, remember, you could do upwards of $40 an hour. If the bonus time was out at 9, you hit that area and make sure your first ride was just past 9 o'clock, maybe by 9:10. It was kind of like a busy day where you could do constant 4 rides an hour from 9, 10, all the way to 11. At that time, we'll start slowing down. It was a good little, let's say, 100 and something in about 3 hours. That didn't last long. I believe it might have been somewhere by the end of 2022, those bonuses were no longer there. At the same time, I started looking at numbers, and I started noticing that I was blowing a decent amount of money on gas. We're talking, I was driving a lot. I was doing anywhere from $50 to $70 a day. Now remember, I didn't have to work so hard to hit 350, 300-ish bucks a day. That's not counting rides that I would offer people on the side. Now, from the beginning, I followed the advice of some friends, and from when I first started driving, doing rides, I followed the advice from some friends. Hey, start building a list of clients that fly a lot, since you're doing airport rides in the morning, so that you can just do your own thing. You don't have to worry about what Uber is taking and all of that. I remember, I believe at some point before the end of the year, I started thinking maybe I could go ahead and start using one of my electric vehicles, several Teslas that I own. I went ahead and did the rental program that Hertz has with Uber. If you're a new driver, you probably already know this by now. And you can go ahead and go to certain Hertz offices that they deal with. They do Uber deals, and you can go ahead and get a rental. Back then, I rented a long range. Actually, no. Back then, I started with a rear-wheel drive standard range Model 3, which in my opinion is not worth it. Not even forget about doing deliveries, just for daily commute. Not worth it at all. But I wanted to see what was it like. Now, back then, the price to rent a rear-wheel drive Model 3 short range was, I remember that might have been like just under 400. It was 300 and change. But also, the rates at the supercharger were much, much lower than they are right now. Back then, I used to see as low as 11, 12 cents overnight, like really late at night per kilowatt. That's no longer the case. Today, around my area, the cheapest that I've seen late at night when it's cheaper to charge is 37 cents. Luckily, I have two chargers at home. The rate that I get, because I get a discount from my local power provider, I pay 11 cents a kilowatt at home. But sometimes I do find myself going to supercharger a lot. Obviously, we drive a lot. And those rates that I used to get back then are no longer existent. So I did the rental for about a month with the standard range. I went ahead and upgraded it to a long range. I believe that was $486 a week, plus the charging fees that you'll pay every Friday. When you have to renew your contract, you have to go back to the Hertz office, pay the whole week, and then on top of that, they'll give you a summary of how much do you owe for the charging fees. You don't have access to that. They don't take those charging fees off of a credit card that belongs to you like you do if you own your own vehicle. You have to pay that at the end of the week. But back then, the amount of money I was making without breaking a sweat, it was easily affordable. Keep in mind, it was a different time. Charging rates were different. After 4 months of doing the rental altogether, 1 month with the standard range, 3 months with the long range, I decided, okay, now I know how much I'm making. Now it's time for me to go ahead, drop the rental, and start using my own Model 3. Let me tell you what happened. The exact same day, I went ahead and returned the rental. Since I was no longer doing the rental with Hertz, I figured Uber didn't like the idea that I started using my own Tesla. And the exact day that I went ahead and made the switch to a rental, from a rental to my own, I started seeing a decrease on the amount of trips that I was getting. A lot of those nice trips I was getting were no longer there. Let's say I would start at 3 in the morning because I don't want to deal with traffic. I still do till this day. And be done at 8:30 in the morning when traffic was building up. I would do really well in those few hours just doing airport runs. I will probably take a small trip when I first turned on the app at 3 in the morning because the search was decent. That's one more thing to mention. Back then, searches were more common at that time of the day, or on the weekends, or late at night. Today, searches are I'm not going to say they're non-existent. They still pop up, but they're not as good. I remember back then I was sitting here the day that I decided to take off here on my house, and I would just keep an eye on the app. You see a $30 search pop up right on top of your house or in your area, and that search was actually there. Put your shoes on, get on your car, turn on the Uber app, and the search will stay at the same price. If it was a $30 search, it will stay at $20 when you turn the app on. Obviously, it will go away really quick, but it will stay on. Today, that's no longer the case. I want to let you guys know. If you see a search down the street, if it's half a block from me, then I'll drive towards it. But if it's a little farther than that, I tend to ignore it because it would just disappear the minute you get on it. It needs to be a really busy day for you to be able to reach that area before it goes away. Anyways, started using my own Model 3. I saw a decrease in the amount of rides that Uber was sending me. Slowly, things started to change. The pay started to come down. Uber slowly started getting rid of the bonuses. There was no longer an incentive of any kind. The only thing that Uber was offering for electric vehicles it was $1 extra per every ride if you were driving an electric vehicle. So time went by, and the bonuses disappeared altogether. The only drivers that were seeing a bonus was new drivers. Uber went ahead, took the bonus away for a long time. Prices on rides started declining to the point where those sweet rides that will be non-stop to the airport that's down the street from me, 18 miles away. Those trips went from $30 to $20-ish to today. The same trip that used to be a minimum of $30, I'm talking a regular trip, a last minute request, not a reservation. Fast forward till today. Again, we still have no bonuses anymore. The few drivers that get a bonuses because they just started. Those trips that used to be $5 minimum for maybe 3 miles, mile and a half to pick up, mile and a half to drop off, those trips are no longer existent. Those trips are now in my area, $3 and change. Uber took away the dollar extra they used to give electric vehicles, and they lowered the price of the rides so much that it's no longer worth even touching those rides, because they also took away the bonus that I mentioned before. Again, if it's a new driver, you probably will never see these again. They took away the bonus that I spoke about before, the Monday into Sunday deals where they do $300, $400, $500 for a certain amount of rides, and they took a dollar extra. And then on top of that, Uber went ahead and removed the little boost areas where in certain times of the night they'll do $3, $4 extra per every ride. That disappeared altogether. Today, there are some areas outside of LA County, like in Orange County, where some rides are as low as $2 and change for 5 miles. Not only that, those 5 miles take you forever because it's a busy time of the morning, and it's just not doable. Again, like I mentioned before, they went ahead and removed the dollar extra they used to give guys that will drive EVs. Now, in order for you to get that EV bonus, it's still there, it's just in a different way. They don't do $1 per ride any extra anymore. Now I believe you gotta do 200, I believe. Let me check. I will check really quick on the Uber app. Now they change it, and what you have to do to reach that the EV bonus, what you have to do is you need to complete 200 rides in a month, and then if you complete 200 rides, they'll give you a $210 bonus. In my case, a typical day sometimes is not even 10 rides. When it used to be more than that, because of what I mentioned before, it was incentives. You know, it was worth trying to get that bonus, or worth trying to do small trips every day so you could, come out with the trips that you needed. Today, that's no longer the case. So again, a typical day for me, being honest, when I start at 3 in the morning, not counting some of my private rides, I only do 3 rides in the morning. And the lowest ride ends up being about $30 to the airport that I mentioned. No, $30 including a tip. And the reason why sometimes I take a ride like that going towards that one airport is because I might have one of my clients in the area that needs to be dropped off. So I figure I'm going that way already. 11 miles run, $23. I don't mind doing something like that. Then I'm almost next to the airport where one of my clients is. Pick them up, drop them off. That's how I do it. Today, those rides that were going to LAX, 38 miles away, those rides pay as low as $23 to drive 38 miles to an area where it's no longer as busy as it used to at that time anymore, and you get no arrivals at that time, so you're stuck. You have to drive away from that area or drive back to your area before traffic builds up. Hopefully you get another request to go back to the airport, and by the time you get to the airport, might be past the time where now you got some arrivals, and you might get lucky and get a request coming out of the airport. Waiting on the queue is no longer, in my opinion, it was never an option for me. And if you're not an Uber driver, when I refer to the queue, I mean there's an automatic list that you get put on when you go into the airport, drive your passenger off. If they don't send you a request with a passenger that's coming out of the airport, the Uber system will put you on a queue until your turn comes anymore. You will not get any requests. So you have to go and hang out at this Uber parking lot, which again, I've only tried maybe a handful of times and it's just not worth it for me. I'd rather shut off the Uber app and be gone. I mentioned private rides throughout this video because I want to remind you that if you're new to Uber, it is very important. If you decide to go ahead and try it, even after you watch my video and all the other videos on YouTube, if you decide to try this and you're going to do it for the long run, please be patient, build your clientele outside of Uber, get proper insurance so you don't get yourself in trouble. When you first start doing this, you might share with other drivers in the area that you know, and they're probably going to try and scare you. Oh, don't be taking rides outside the Uber app because you can get in trouble, blah, blah, blah. Somebody reports you. Do not listen to that, because if you don't do private rides today, October of 2024, it is no longer, it's just no longer worth doing. If you think you'll survive, you use the trips that you get from Uber, it is not doable. You have to have private rides though. That's just, you have to. I made a video where I kind of talked about, how I go about approaching riders, about, going with me instead of doing Uber. I will post a link to that video on the description of this video. Again, things have changed a lot, and it's unfortunate that new drivers that watch videos like mine, or new drivers that don't watch any videos at all, they turn on the Uber app, they accept anything that comes up. You're teaching the algorithm bad habits, and as long as we have a bunch of drivers that still taking a 10-mile ride for $3.90, Uber will continue to lower the fares. So I believe I kind of cover most of the stuff that what's been happening from when I first started till now. The reason why I did that is because I want you guys that are new to understand what was it like now. If you're an old school driver that's been driving way longer than me, you probably have, I don't know, stories about better bonuses and all that, and I know that's a fact. If that's the case and you don't mind, please share it on the comment section. If you're still driving like I am and you have anything to share on the comments for new drivers, or you just want to share a story of what pay used to be like back then compared to now, I would love for you guys to share that on the comment section. Again, thanks a lot for watching. If you're a new driver, have any questions, feel free to post them on the comments. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of drivers that are willing to help you out. And I want to say one thing before I end the video. If you made it this far into the video, if you're a new driver in the US and before you drive you have nobody that's doing Uber, nobody that you know that's doing Uber and can give you tips in your area or how to do things or whatever, and you decide to go on Facebook or Reddit, do not feel discouraged and go out and drive your area on your own. Learn from your own mistakes. The reason why I'm saying that is because I'm going to be honest with you. I realized after visiting those Facebook groups, which I no longer do, and going on Reddit, which I still do go on Reddit just to keep an eye on what's going on. When you post a positive story of a good week that you had, you show a screenshot of your earnings and all that, you're going to get a bunch of negative responses from drivers that are frustrated because their market is no longer worth doing anything at all, and they want to pass on that frustration to the rest of the country. If you keep reading those responses, you're going to get discouraged. You're going to get turned off, and you're probably going to be like, I'm not doing this. So do not let that negative side of these guys. Some of these guys will tell you things that are true, but again, try it on your own. Do not let these miserable people knock out your plan. We'll see you on the next video.